After the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone's patience. We'll start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. And we're starting with some visitors. Today we have the Invention Convention recognition.
Hi, thank you to the Board of Education for providing this time. I'm Michael Bodette. I'm with the Mentoring Corps for Community Development, and I know you have a full evening, so I'm very brief. It is something that the school system has real reason to be proud of, how much they've supported this program, the innovation of the Invention Convention. And this has been going on for years, and it just gets stronger all the time. And the successes of young inventors here in our community have been astounding. We have one of them this evening. So tonight we're delighted to present recognition to our local winner, Natalie Gibbons, and her achievement is really astounding. She developed something called Plastic Gone, and she went on to state competition, and in the state competition she won 2 prizes. She won the Cutnick Family Foundation award, and that is it's a prize given to a student with a particularly innovative approach to keeping water safe, clean, and sustainable. But she also went on and won an invitation to the national competition, which happens in Dearborn, Michigan later this year. Natalie's invention, Plastic Gone, is a system that she filters out the microplastics in rainwater from the laundry, thus preventing further contamination downstream. Major social problem we deal with today, and sort of beyond looking at small personal problems, she looked at bigger problems, and they recognized her for breadth of provision. So Natalie, if you come up here, I have our prizes for you. I think they're up here. One is the future of science is female. There she is. And the other is Wonder Women of Science. Here you are. You represent that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, and we'll move on to a report from our student representative.
This school, after a busy 2 days moving back into our classrooms, we are off to a great start at center school. We began the year by providing families with tours of center school and days of school. The tours introduce students and families to our classrooms, our playground, and all of our preschool facilities. In our classrooms, we're making new friends, learning our classroom routines, and having fun. Our 3-year-old students have been exploring and loving their new playground. We are looking forward to our first visit from the Connecticut Audubon Society later this month for a lesson exploring weather. This month, our students are all about the apples. We're looking forward to celebrating International Dog Day on September 15th by wearing dogs to school. We are excited to have our families visit our classrooms for summer school's open house, which is scheduled for September 25th. A special thanks to Ron Turner, Brian Howell, and the entire facilities team for all their hard work helping to get our classrooms ready for students. We had a great start to the school year at both Lyme Consolidated and Lyme-Old. Students and staff have been working to establish classroom routines and have been getting to know one another. Grades K-3 and implementation of our new literacy program, Bookworms, has begun. We are very grateful to our custodian and maintenance staff who worked so hard to make sure our buildings were ready for students on the first day of school. On Mile Creek next week, we will have our first school-wide community meeting. At this meeting, each classroom shows the classroom agreements that they have created that link to the elementary school pledge to be safe, be kind, and do our best. At this assembly, we'll talk about what the Wildcat Way means and how we are all members of the Wildcat family. At Lyme, we welcome our new pre-K classes and getting ready to our first school-wide assembly. Our fifth grade students have been embracing their leadership role in the school, and they have been finding ways to be role models for the younger students. Now, middle school, they're off to a fantastic start this year. Sixth graders enjoyed their orientation day, including an ice cream social held by its feet, while families benefited from a special evening session to help parents prepare for the transition to middle school. Tomorrow evening at 6:15, we look forward to welcoming families back for our annual back to school. Sports are already underway with tryouts taking place this week, and students will begin the iReady assessment in math and reading to establish baseline data from the year. Heartfelt thank you goes out to our maintenance and custodial teams. The building block looks terrific despite ongoing construction work. We're excited for your full growth learning. The high school freshman orientation went really well, with students getting a chance to tour the school and get comfortable with their new surroundings. On the first day of classes, each grade held meetings where everyone was able to bond, enjoy food together, and kick off the year as a team. Seniors received their senior shirts and proudly wore them on Friday, marking an exciting tradition. Fall sports were back in action with plenty of exciting games ahead, and the fall plans have been announced as an election with auditions happening later this month. Clubs are also beginning to the year, including Mock Trial and Amnesty International, and much more, giving students plenty of opportunities to get involved.
Now we'll turn to public comment. If you wish to make public comment, please come to the microphone, give your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Powell, St. Louis, town of Lyme on Hamburg Road. Thank you for all of you for serving on the Board of Education. It's been a difficult 10 days in this country with another school shooting in Minneapolis, and it seems appropriate to me to reflect a bit on that this evening, and to reflect, as I understand, for some plans that students have this Friday at the high school. And I would like to just pose some questions to the administration about that demonstration. We made a controversial decision when I was on the board in 2022-2023 school year to arm our school guards in a 7-2 decision. And I personally am grateful for that decision, as I have my last student graduating, my last son, graduating this year at high school. I commend the district for our commitment to education, security, and safety for all of our students. I understand that this Friday, the Students Demand Action.org is having a demonstration or a walkout at 10 a.m. This Friday at the high school. And I also understand that this organization is funded by a larger national organization called Every Town for Gun Safety. So if the superintendent and Mr. Wygonik would be so kind to entertain a few questions that I have, and I think several other parents in the district have, about this walkout, because I don't think that it has been widely communicated to any parents, and I understand it's only been communicated to students through social media platforms. So my question to the superintendent and Mr. Wygonik are students freely able to participate in this walkout on Friday at 10 a.m.? How long will this walkout last? Will they receive disciplinary action for participating in this walkout? And who will be responsible for crowd control if this walkout does occur? And thank you for your time.
There's some concern regarding too much information publicly about the security of some of those questions.
disciplines based on decision to demonstrate it all depends on how they behave at that demonstration. Students simply walk out in peaceful solidarity with victims for school violence or discipline somebody, absolutely not. If someone causes a disruption to the educational process, they could be facing disciplinary action. So I think that's understood by most of the students. And if not, I hope that information can be shared widely. I don't anticipate that will happen all, I think it was 2018 or 2019, our students did something very similar after the part of Michigan. And it was totally peaceful and appropriate. And students showed support for the victims of those, not just the most recent shootings, but all school shootings.
It's run by Maggie Tura, if you want to ask her questions about it as well. And for how it's going to be, she said it'll be around 35 minutes. She's going to be talking at it. It's just going to be at the track fields, and we're still going to be in school campus. Yeah, ask her who's right. She's a senior, and she's on campus. Yeah.
Further questions? Anyone else with public comment? Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was on the agenda, I wasn't thinking about it.
No.
Oh, you want to
You had emailed us with some questions earlier, so the understanding is we discuss your questions after.
Oh, okay, sorry, the way Ian said it was on the agenda, I thought it was, okay. So Mike Ryder, 264 Creek Road. I'm on the board of the Lyme-Old League, and we are requesting access to use the baseball field at the high school for practices this fall, and then games in the spring and all seasons after that. In this town, we have, once the kids clear the 12-year-old, 12 and under, which is on the Little League size field for baseball, the only option is the middle school team, and the middle school team makes cuts. Number one, so those kids who get cut that need somewhere to play. And then number two, the kids who do make that team, they took, my son said 21 kids on the team this past year. There's no JV or middle school, just within the CIAC, that's how it goes. So kids, even the kids who would be who are the main starters on those teams, if they don't play travel ball, they're not getting enough at-bats to develop as a player. So you have a situation where you have kids who get cut, they have nowhere to play, and kids who make the team, if they don't go spend thousands of dollars to play travel baseball, aren't going to get enough at-bats and enough time in the field and enough practice time to develop. And this leaves us with a high school program where we had, I think, 16 kids come out this year. We didn't have enough for a JV, and for those of us who do baseball in town, that's a real problem. We really want to see baseball get back to where it was, competing for and winning state championships. So this summer, we put together a Little League team at the juniors level, which is the league ages 12, 13, and 14, which is essentially 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have 14 kids on the team who are all in the older age range for that, which shows there's a lot of interest in this. But we didn't have a field to play on. The policy is that Ron Turner gets to make the decision on field usage, and he doesn't allow use of grass fields in the summer. The rest is not, but he also doesn't allow any use of the baseball fields in the fall or any other season other than the spring when middle school teams are using it, and they don't allow other organizations to use it at all, including Lyme-Old and Little League, which is all kids in town in the school system. So the policy says to make a request to Ron. Ron said no. He said you can elevate to Ian. Ian said no. So the last thing is to elevate to the Board of Ed. So I think you all got my email a couple weeks ago requesting access. We're looking for this fall to practice twice a week, 2 1.5 hour practices. And then in the spring, we're We want to go play games on that field. We believe we'll be able to practice somewhere else. Plus, there will definitely be 2 teams, hopefully 3. Hopefully there's enough kids for a JV. And we know we would be last in line for that. We're not expecting the middle school kids who would be on Little League to, the kids who play on our juniors team, the middle school team would be their priority. We would work with whoever ends up coaching the middle school team to make sure that that's understood, especially with pitching, so whenever everyone's out. But we want to make sure that the kids in town who want to play baseball have a place to play, and the kids who want to get better have a team to plan to get to continue to develop. So this is our focus.
Just a couple of points. One, we're talking about somewhat separate issues here. One is costs. That's a much larger discussion. I have mixed opinions on that. I think myself and some of the other kids who are freshmen physically need an exception. So very hard to say. I'm sure you're all needs on Facebook on like forums about 3 times. But that being said, we've had this one that this is more about food use. As I shared with Mike in the email team, our policy committee, when we built the turf field, intentionally rewrote the policy so that the only fields we could rent were the turf field, fields in Mile 3, and fields in Mile 2 soccer, cross fields, grass field, middle school, high school, track field, and baseball field, and softball field, high school. Those were then, as long as I've been here, I've always been reserved for high school, middle school programs only. And that's not just because, we're trying to keep people out. It's because those fields can only take a certain amount of use. Right now, our fields are in top-notch condition. Before we built that turf field, they were not in good condition. And that's why we built that turf field. We just take some of the excessive use of those fields and move it to the turf field. I offered to Mike and the Little League, they can rent the turf field as Lutex, as the Lyme-Old soccer club. There's a full-size baseball field on there. There's a full-size softball field on there. There's a full-size soccer field, a full-size lacrosse field, and an additional half of cross soccer field as well. So that can accommodate any sport. We did inquire about that. Unfortunately, the plans that we needed it to go by other people because it is very popular. It's a lot of use. My concern is if we do allow groups such as Little League use the baseball field, the soccer club is then going to want to use our soccer fields, and the softball club is going to want to use our softball fields. And all of a sudden, we're going to be back to the same overuse situation that we had prior to using the turf. As I said, this was done intentionally to protect our fields. Right now, our fields, according to the people who maintain them, we have outside groups that maintain them, or ask them to show up. We want to continue to maintain that for our school programs here, which are our priority. It's not to dismiss Little League, it's more of an experience for students, but our priority needs to be our school programs. Not to mention, we spend a lot of money to maintain our fields, and we spend even more money when we had
thank you for the information, and that's the next week. Tuesday, then I'm discussing, I mean, I think we need to look at it from all that, all perspective of the meeting. That's the advice that we just talk, get Ron's input. And reach out to the right department.
My input is that I'm fine talking about it at the policy meeting, but I do understand all the ins and outs of this, and I don't really have the ability to have this for reviews. Needs to stay up to par for basically those 14 teams, and these fields aren't easy to maintain. My son looked at his boss and what these fields kind of look like, and that would help. It's not really possible, but I don't mind talking about it, but that's fine.
Yeah, maybe we'll do. Is there another public comment for that? If you don't mind. So we'll move on to correspondence. We have one item of correspondence from the past month, and that was, right, everybody. So just next week. Reports, the superintendent's report.
Okay, we begin with the personnel reports. We actually have some updates as of today to this report. We hired a technology facilitator, so that's no longer a vacancy. We are still looking for instructional assistants at all levels. That's kind of as it goes, so it's pretty regular. We do have a number of different appointments. Most of these are some of these hires that we made late in the summer. Gary Jacobson, who's worked for us previously, is moving along from a supposition in Mount Creek. Gary works on is filled with going to Clemens position in high school, going to retire at the beginning of the summer. Pam Gerardo, we hired as an IA in the middle school. Lisa Nash is our new payroll clerk. She started Tuesday. Wednesday ago. And then Delaney York and Ellen McCullough, we have hired as instructional assistants in our transition program. A couple of resignations, again, from later in the summer. We did use a technology facilitator. As I said, that position has been filled. Media specialist at our high school. That we are looking to use for the end of this week. And a instructional position, assistant position.
The media specialist, football specialist.
Yes. Questions? Okay, moving on to enrollment. As you know, we don't have a last month's comparison because this is the first enrollment report for school. You can see we have 48 students. Keep in mind, I mentioned this before, but just for people in the public who may not have heard this, a little bit different this year because we have a low number of kindergartners. We're anticipating a low number of kindergartners because of that change in the law where students have to be 5 to start kindergarten, which, as you may recall, we implemented pre-K last year, which caused lower numbers of pre-K with that small numbers of kindergarten. What has happened is all those kids who didn't come to pre-K last year are now here. So we actually have an additional section in pre-K that we're running at the Lyme school because we only have 3 total kindergartens. And in order to keep 12 sections across the board and keep all of our specialist teachers whole up there, we added that pre-K section for 1 year. Have some plans for the future that we're not ready to make public yet about how we'll address that in the future to continue to maintain those 12 classes. It really depends on the kindergarten enrollment. That is slightly different than the past. Our overall school numbers are relatively the same. The one that is down, as we expected, was the high school, as some of those smaller classes are coming up. I can see at the lower level we're starting to pick back those classes of 100 kids or more. Those grow, tend to grow. So the trend is continuing as we anticipate. Questions? Okay, even though Chris isn't here, I will let you know we have 16 tuition students spread out throughout the grades, but I did notice when I was looking at this, the majority of them are actually in seniors, 6 of those 16 are seniors. So I have that as 6 out of 16. Something to watch for the future. If you're not going to get base controls, because that's something we'll go over tonight, discussion of that on the retreat.
Good evening, everyone. Starting off with an attachment on your agenda for an updated executive budget summary for July. You recall I asked Ms. Steve presented that for me, and when I reviewed it last week, working on it this month, I noticed that I had failed to actually update the budget numbers for 25-26, so the percentage to budget that was presented was not quite accurate. So I did update the budget numbers so that you can take a look at what that really was for the month of July, presented in the August meeting. As for what August looks like for this month's budget summary, we're at a 19% spent budget versus 18.7% last year at the same amount of time. There's nothing, everything is pretty much the same or close to trend of last year except special education. Our costs are trending higher because we do have some increased tuition costs. We're aware of those and we're expecting those. There is a year-over-year differential in transportation. That's purely just because the encumbrance for this year's transportation has not been put in yet. It's just still a little too early in the year for everything to, necessarily be in its timing of invoices, etc. So, probably like next month or two is when we're really going to see things, be a little bit more stable from one year to the next. But nothing of any concern at this point in time, as far as the executive budget summary is concerned. Any questions on that piece?
We all knew that the mistake was there. We were waiting for you.
Thank you. I had a feeling. The only one that didn't know was Ian, clearly.
And he was giving the information.
Yeah, right.
How's that?
Set him up.
When exactly do you expect the last year's audit will be?
So, it has not started yet. So, thankfully, I'm a little busy these last 2 weeks. I would expect that within the next couple of weeks it will start to ramp up. Probably mid-November would be my guess, is that it will be finished, if I'm being completely honest. By law, it has to be done by December 31st, done and filed by December 31st, unless, of course, an extension is requested, which my tenure here has not happened.
Well, you just don't need to think it will be your next budget.
No, and I mean, there's nothing that happened that should cause that to happen, so, that's what I expect for the audit.
Thank you.
From a revenue perspective, the town of Lyme has paid $4,168,599. The town of Lyme, $920,784. That is through August 31st. And there is no spend towards contingency, so the remaining balance is at $200,000. Thank you.
We'll move on to the AI update.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Having safe use around artificial intelligence and being able to really understand the expectations of their classroom teacher based on the assignment, you'll see that not only are we asking students to cite the use, but also to provide at times documentation of what your thoughts were within the system and which system that you were using.
Because it's garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Right. Right, and that's part of one of the pieces of sort of that, the education is generative AI is only as good as what you put into it. And if you've ever used, say, ChatGPT, if you just put in generate, something that's really not specific, then you're not going to get necessarily, but you generatively go back with more prompts, but the better the prompt is initially, the more accurate it's going to be. And I can say, we've been working with an approved Connecticut tool called Class Companion, which does provide feedback on student work. And what we have found is that uploading the rubrics that we're uploading, the teacher rubrics, have to be incredibly specific. And so there's been a lot of work around kind of understanding, the credibility of the resources that we're using as a district. So moving on with the student guidelines, I think what's probably the biggest highlight is the appropriate use, and the inappropriate use being very concise and specific about what's acceptable use and what's not, just creating an AI generated paper and submitting that, etc. Or even using it to rephrase others' work and to pass it off as your own. The last document you will see is similar to this. We have a couple of different formats that we're experimenting with. The color scheme should be the same, but this is the staff guidelines. The content is exactly the same. And this is specific, like I said, to staff. So first and foremost, addressing student data privacy and the importance of understanding that if you are using a tool that is not Connecticut compliant with the Student Data Privacy Pledge, then any identifiable information that may be entered into, say, ChatGPT becomes a public domain, which ChatGPT then can draw from. So if you are wanting to provide feedback or try to check authenticity of student work by plugging into a tool that is not approved by the state, then you are putting potentially student identifiable information out there, and also sacrificing students' authentic work too, potentially. So we start there and drive that, but then we move into, again, reinforcing the fact that this is a tool that can be leveraged to help boost productivity. However, it's not a replacement for human beings at all. Going into transparency, which moves beyond just the idea of energy use or anything like that, but this is specific. If a teacher is using AI to generate lesson plans or things like that, what is their responsibility in identifying that, yes, I use ChatGPT to help support this, or I'm giving initial feedback using ChatGPT and I've altered some of the statements. Going into their specific responsibilities about following our norms within the district, and then highlighting some of the real limitations that I mentioned before, where not everything is accurate that's produced, even if you have a great prompt that goes in, and then making sure that our teachers do understand that the tools that they are using, there still needs to be a human in the loop, because there is bias that can be produced through some of these resources where it's reinforcing stereotypes or other negative connotations around students, for example, or adults. For example, oftentimes through ChatGPT, what you'll see, if you are saying, write me a paragraph about visiting a hospital emergency room and what I can expect. The doctor will likely be male, the nurses will likely be female. So those are those kind of reinforcing stereotypes that I'm speaking of. I'm ready for more questions and comments.
I have one for you. So, it seems like really a lot. So, the feasibility is of it's almost like you have to have a security.
Well, we do have a fabulous behind the scenes, IT department, fabulous behind the scenes IT department that Ron oversees that, certainly is, catching things that might be inappropriate. However, I would say our guidelines are meant to be relatively broad, so that as we navigate this ever-changing landscape of technology, that we're able to apply the majority of our guidelines. And one of the things that we know in our principles is that this is something that is not stagnant, and that we have to continually revisit these living documents because of the ever-changing landscape.
Very much out there. very regular basis.
Yeah, and, you know, if you think of it in terms of college and career readiness, right now, 70 to 73% of organizations are expecting new employees to come in with working knowledge of how to use AI to leverage productivity, scale work. So that's just one of the reasons why we want our students to be educated on the good, bad, and the ugly of AI.
Second question. On page 2, the second page, where it talks about 6 blocks, talks about AI guidelines. On your website, you talk about the fact that you realize that AI is not always producing factual information. So how are teachers going to instruct our students how to know that it is not correct? Because I've seen adults go put something in it and say, where did you find that? And they go to the website. It's AI generated, you have to check these down. It's sometimes it's here in our towns.
Yes.
It's not correct.
So that actually, we have a library media curriculum for research that starts in kindergarten. We're obviously not having students necessarily do fact checking on their PebbleGo research because we provide those resources, vetted resources to them. But as students get older, the library research curriculum has them do vetting and source checking. So that's something that's already built into our curriculum. This is just one more layer where we have to have students make sure that whatever they're looking up has to be fact checked. Again, that human loop is incredibly important in this process. It's like I said, I was so excited that my work was done, you know, and then come to realize, oh no, it's hours of hard work, but it provided me the confidence, it provided me a framework and a springboard to be able to attack that work.
The page 4, regional school district 18 AI student guidelines. How are those disseminated amongst the students? Is it part of their student guide?
It's not distributed yet because that's one of the things we want to get in front of our staff to get feedback as well before we make anything official. But I would see that we would use our advisory as an avenue to be able to introduce this and then also have conversations and get feedback from students that way.
Great.
I might ask student reps at the high school, in your early classes, has there been discussion of
I take some business classes at the school, and with there, she has her own rules. You can use AI, but she has this list. What's the prompt? Like she was talking about. What answer did you get? Did you believe it? You know, stuff like that. I think that's important. It depends on teacher to teacher in my mind. Like, can I use an AI? What are your rules? It's very different depending on the class. It's very hard.
so this sort of district-wide policy is probably going to help, so everybody will have the same guardrails.
And I think it being taught in our advisory, stuff like that, will help
Reinforce.
Yes.
And then also, I know specifically like with back to school, more specifically in the English department, there has been a lot of discussion around it. And there was new things put in as well. And they got sent out to our parents. I know my parents were personally talking to me about it, seeing if they're aware, and then it was a big topic. But also in the science field of education, there has been talk about it. I know last year we used it to help as a study tool, essentially, and to just make practice tests for us according to like the curriculum we're learning to help us. So it's not so much we're using it to work, but more to help us educate ourselves.
And I do want to emphasize that this committee in the spring was not the first conversation that we have had inter-district around this. This is something that we have been discussing for years at this point. And so I think that our teachers are pretty well educated on AI, and they've obviously created their own like guidelines within their classrooms around AI use. I felt a sense of urgency in the spring because it's kind of the wild, wild west. And we want to make sure that everybody has the same information, vocabulary, and that's part of the reason why we're kicking off and providing on the 4th mini AI PDs for our teachers, but then on a monthly basis, taking these specific themes around bias, around transparency, and energy consumption, all of these pieces to have also professional development taking place at faculty meetings for our staff. So that they can also help better educate students, because we all have a knowledge of AI because it's there. However, in terms of, okay, how do we help students understand not everything is real, and how do we help them remember to go back? And you're speaking of Mrs. Traver's class, who has the did you believe it and all of that. So really making sure students are reflective in the work.
So, will you have with that training or sign off for parents?
That's a great question. That's not something that we just have discussed, but certainly that might be something that we could even incorporate into when we all have parents already coming into the building, like for a night or something like that. At least have information for that, or when we do after school nights, being able to provide information that way. But that's something that I'll bring to the committee to discuss if we wanted to have something specific to, like a parent thing around that.
Maybe we could have these guidance.
Perhaps maybe awareness being responsible.
Oh, that would be
I mean, I really think that it's excellent. But
So that's the ticket.
it is, I mean, I really think that parents to be able to listen about it.
Yeah.
I will call Mary tomorrow.
It feels like a big enough, I'm sorry. It feels like a big enough change in parents and kind of at least an invitation to volunteer to have your life disrupted to come and hear more about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't.
we all need more information.
I would also say, I mean, back to school nights, I think any opportunity, once these are solidified, any opportunity to get in front of the public in general is positive, because all parents are going to respond to a YSB night, but on our website, wherever we can get them out there, because I think the general public needs the education about the steps that we're taking to not only educate our staff and students and our board, but things that they may not realize that we're doing. I think it may help to not only educate them, but set their minds at ease that we are taking. It's, to some people, it's a big boogeyman, it's scary. And by the way, just my daughter's high school teacher, and somebody's, I mean, she could talk immediately in an AI generated thing, because the prompt or her assignments are designed to make you respond, not just regurgitate. So when somebody does that, it painfully apparent.
It soon will be less apparent, though, frankly.
No, that's true, that's true.
Thank you for prioritizing this. Thank you for fast tracking it, as you said last spring. And all the fast tracking that we can do, I think, would be helpful, because this element of digital literacy there's very little that's more important than this right now in our system. Thank
So
you.
I have one more question. So what do you do about plagiarism? Because it's going to be tricky to, I mean, there's no plagiarism in school, and you have consequences for that. This seems a little bit going to be difficult.
We have different resources that our teachers use, such as Turnitin that has AI detectors. There are other Class Companion that we're using in some of our classrooms, has AI detection. Nothing's going to be perfect, but what AI has also done is shifted some practices in classrooms where our English teachers are going to have more writing in class. And to Susan, to your point, when teachers get to understand and know a student's style, it's very easy to also kind of get a red flag on a section or if it's something entirely questioning, I might want to double check this. The other is having different types of prompts where it's evidence-based, or even including some opinion where it has to be more personal. And then, I forget my last comment, they come back to me, but we've been dealing with plagiarism, you know, that's not something we. But we've been managing this for a number of years. This isn't a new now.
No, I know, but I
problem,
feel like we
and
need to give students more space with this, is what I'm saying.
explain to the more space.
Well, it just seems like this is so different in what you can gather from AI, like, trying to help students really, be focused and know, where they're going with this. Like you just said, you did something with AI, you thought you were all, but you weren't. You know what I mean? So like, it's definitely different, and it's like a different mindset, and, I think we have to give everybody space to, really understand, and I'm sure students will help each other out. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think in terms of plagiarism, that's something that, again, we have different resources that we have that's built into some of our systems. Like I said, Turnitin that does a pretty good job of being able to detect AI.
Michelle, for you, let's look at what we use
For board members, I think that, we always like to review, so I would welcome that. I think opening it to parents is difficult because we are looking at limited space. In addition to, it may not be applicable to their world. And I would wonder also, with this being potentially a very sensitive topic, how our teachers would actively participate, feeling, that the parents are, there as well. Yeah.
So the next step is to notify that.
Yeah, and then get it out to students and monitor it as we need to.
Great.
Once this is ready, would you please send us the.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Thank you.
Did you think this was gonna take 5 minutes?
No.
Thank you. Very.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Move on to chair and committee reports, which we didn't have any other committee meetings other than the building committee last month, which we have the communications and policy meeting coming up next Tuesday at 9. The first facilities and finance meeting will be before this board meeting on October 1st. That moving of the DPA building.
Yes. First, I'd like to start by saying thank you to the staff, all of the staff, and the communities and citizens of Lyme and Old Lyme. We've had a lot of construction vehicles, we've had noise, we've had dust up from construction this summer. And although some folks have expressed their displeasure with that, we understood, we responded with our sincere gratitude for their patience, but we want them to know that we appreciate that they had to tolerate that. This summer was an incredible flurry of work. Considering what I saw midsummer, I think it's miraculous that school started on time and that the buildings were as decent looking as they were. Because if you came in here July 31st, you would have said, oh, this couldn't possibly happen. It did. There were last minute glitches, of course, but we are back in business, so to speak. One thing I did note to you in this report, I said that the work had gone back to second shift after school. That's true everywhere except Mild Creek, obviously, because in Mild Creek, they're still working on the addition in places that are not student funded. And I want to be clear about that. Middle school cafeteria, I'm understanding that they're not serving hot lunch from the usual kitchen line. Even though the contractors went into the ceiling and did scans of what existed and had some drawings of the buildings, it is inevitable that when you open them and start taking out old equipment, you find obstacles. And that's what happened in the middle school cafeteria. They found an obstacle that was not easily worked around to it, and that they couldn't install the ducting properly. Had to go back to the drawing board, if you will, which is why the cafeteria wasn't ready. Parents and staff were informed, kids have the ability to purchase milk-free sandwiches until that is resolved. That would be sometime they're telling me around or about September 20th. Sound about right, Ian? Please correct me if I'm wrong. As I previously have I had told you, the Model Creek School underground drainage system is essentially installed. There's a binder course down on the bus loop side in front of Model Creek. The remaining parent drop-off loop will be completed next summer, in the summer of 2026. And the entire parking lot at that time will receive a final pavement so as to not disrupt. Not pave it now and then wreck it during the construction season. We've done it in Montreal School. So you may have noticed, for any of you who live there near Model Creek or have driven by, that there's some landscape, including grass and trees, that have been planted. And as I was leaving our Wednesday owners meeting today, there's a big, huge water truck outside, and the contractor, the landscape contractor, is watering daily. Big water truck and is watering all of the landscaping because obviously we are in a drought of sorts. And so they are responsible for that, for at least 60 days of watering. And even beyond that, the plantings carry some water. Sure.
In a landscaper's contract, what is their responsibility? How long are they supposed to water? What is their?
Yeah, I think it was 16.
So there's a 1-year warranty on all plantings. They have to, from substantial completion of the landscape, substantial completion is not been signed up. So all the work is kind of like the government. So the contractors are responsible for the grass, the trees, everything. They continue to be responsible for that.
And the watering end is at least 16 days.
And I think it's gonna be as long as it's, you know, growing season continues.
By 60 days, that in my head, but it'll be a considerable enough time that hopefully we will be into wetter.
But if they don't water till the trees die, the point is they have to do it. At no cost.
Right. And then, as I said in my report to you, again, I'm sorry for reiterating this, but I want it to be on the record for the public. There are 2 milestones that are on Downs and SPNA's radar screen in December. The first one is being able to turn over the Mile Creek addition so that it is occupiable by students and staff, such that we can move some of the students into those classrooms and finish off work in the other portions of the building. So that's one thing that they're expecting in December. And the second is because the state HVAC grants of nearly $12 million have a deadline of December 31st of this year, the architectural firm and construction firm have to sign off to the state before that date that those systems are operational, commissioned, and labeled substantially complete. So those are the 2 main focuses now of this particular season to get the addition turned over so that we can finish the rest of our thing, and to be dead certain that we have the substantial complete sign off according to the state so we get our grant.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
That's where we're at.
And we'll turn to new business, which is the goals. Is if you could start with a motion, we'll just listen to special needed anyway.
Well,
before a motion.
How about if I make a motion to put the goals, the draft goals for 25, 26 on the table for discussion? Does that work?
Yeah.
Approval later.
Alright. All those in favor of putting this on the table for discussion?
Aye.
Okay. Abstention. Nays? All right. So, as Ian stated, we did graduate family schools through the retreat last week. There remains still an option on curriculum, given what I had today early retreats. Was not the second option, but, yeah.
That's what you get.
Trying to be careful. So.
You what we do in your leadership time here?
We made all these decisions. Okay?
For the record, and to bring Jason up to speed, so we had the curriculum discussion, and then we came back to the thought that curriculum. Okay, I wondered what it seemed to me that in the curriculum goals, it was very much about focus on teachers, which is obviously super important, but I kind of felt like it didn't have to do enough with what kids are doing in the classroom day to day. Even though obviously Panorama does deal with their day-to-day actions. And so we opened the discussion up to how could we be more, I don't know, inclusive or focused on the actual curriculum in the traditional sense of the word and the definition. And personally, I think this is excellent. The second option of responsibly leverage artificial intelligence tools to enhance teaching, learning, and operational efficiency while fostering critical thinking, creativity, and ethical awareness. I'm a big fan of that, for what it's worth.
Which does partly well into the presentation.
It sure does.
And the fact that there are going to be that does make a lot of sense.
And includes Panorama. It includes what the, basically, I mean, Panorama is, well, actually it does.
No, but I was.
But it's, no, never mind.
Using it, but we're still going to want an update to that, but maybe not every month.
Still have Panorama for a year.
Yes. Year two.
I think what we came to in the discussion about whether Panorama should be, the use of that data platform should be part of our goals for curriculum, was that in many respects, we considered that to be an administrative decision.
Mhm.
Yes, we were going to be told whether or not it was working and whether or not we could continue to do it, because obviously we have to purchase it again, so it would be coming up one way or another. But from my perspective, it pales in comparison to the need for discussions around AI and how we teach kids. So I mean, that was my takeaway from our retreat discussion, Jason, for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. It does really, particularly at the presentation. So with that seems to be the consensus. Is there a motion to approve the goals with the AI curriculum?
So,
Replacing the AI.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Martha. Any further discussion on that?
Is there any reason that curtails Michelle's work in developing her team in developing Panorama? Is there any reason to think that has any, like, that doesn't create latitude for money or people to work on that project?
No, we're still gonna, to Susan's point, we're still gonna do analysis of Panorama and see, that's part of what we were gonna do anyway this year, to see this work, like you do with anything. Is this helpful? Is it worth the money we're paying? Is it producing what we need to produce? Providing what we need to provide. So we're gonna do that no matter what, whether it's a goal or not. And typically, I think the AI is a much bigger picture.
Yeah, as we think about it, role, function, goal.
Right, I mean, that's, when we look at the future of our students, I think, making sure that they understand AI and they understand these ethical use programs, that sort of stuff, I would put that above,
And I think the Panorama will still be on our radar, but it's not needing a multi-year.
I know, and not in inflation.
So,
Commissioner Burke, I didn't hear.
Yeah, well, especially because we have it for a year.
I accepted
With,
and there's two
the.
Okay.
What we're asking for is what we're getting, and then just evaluating the experiences. It's not a
hold the feet to the fire.
So one question I have about the AI thing is that how it relates to the younger classes, younger students. I mean, like, if they're not using that, the teachers are using it, so like, I mean, I know it's very prevalent for like middle school, high school, but what about the younger?
Prevalent in middle school.
Mostly high school.
Yeah, like only myself.
I should be.
Yeah.
Well, I think the goal around responsible efficient use applies to teachers.
Right.
Pre-K, I mean, across all levels, right?
Yeah, presentation, history, reviews, measures.
Yeah, it may,
I mean, there are professional development out there. We actually had, is considered an expert in education, speak to students and members, show continue all that sort of stuff, staff. Again, I am not aware of anything at the elementary level with student use of AI, but that's not to say that's not coming.
So doing research, they're coming up with websites that are AI generated.
yeah,
And most of that stuff that we manage, whether it's school,
But kind of like the, as Michelle was talking about in the libraries, I mean, digital literacy starting in kindergarten and being able to decipher between truth and fiction is part of AI literacy. So whether or not they're using ChatGPT or not, as a parent of a middle schooler, I can tell you they're using AI whenever they get it. So
we're finally starting media literacy race. The gun went off about 22 years ago. But we're starting, we're trying.
that's not a thing.
And,
Not yet.
On that point, David, that brings us, they may not be using AI actively, but they're using other things that may have AI.
Yeah.
Use John and they are, we can say, you know, fifth grader definitely has experience to try to decide what's AI created and what's not on YouTube. You know? So, it's something definitely worth having literacy for level.
Thank you very much for generating this one. Did you use ChatGPT? But no, I agree. But thank you for prioritizing, because this is much more all-inclusive. And I love having this front and center and talking about every single one as you go. And it'll generate more ideas.
So I think it's quite happy citizens, you know, all of these goals will continue on as we board members in December. So they like it, but I think that'll be a useful thing to put on.
Totally.
Yeah. That, vote, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Passes and rules. And then we have the purchase of the lift gate truck. Ron, is
We tend to notice that on the big price items, really sense.
Yes.
Yes, do it. Thanks for having me. I'll read the action for you first. We just would like you to approve the purchase of a new liftgate truck that will also serve as a backup plow truck at a cost of $95,910.70. The vehicle will be paid for using the district's reserve fund. Just to give you some background, the truck we're replacing is 13 years old. It's tired. Our intention was to put it in next year's budget. We have some talented metal workers on our staff, but there's nothing left to weld to. So we're afraid it's a safety issue for our staff. We'd like to purchase it with the Connecticut purchasing contract numbers, which will be compliant with our purchasing regs. And if we buy it outright using the reserve fund, we save about $17,600 in interest, because the best rates right now for municipal are 8.5%.
What's the delivery time on this?
They go a couple months, so we should get it before winter.
You have a motion to Jennifer, please.
Motion to approve the purchase of the lift gate truck as presented by the Director of Facility.
Second.
Okay, this is the report. Right, yeah, as far as discussion, as Ron said, the motion is to, use the reserve fund to $47,600 in interest. Okay, again, for 15 years.
Part of that recommendation too is the fact that, if you recall, we reserved $1 million in that fund for investigators, security investigators and detainees. It looks like, you can't see for certain, but right now, based on the track along, it looks like we need to use that $1 million. So that's why we decided to make this consideration. We said that it was $1,000. But the significant savings because of high interest rates, this makes sense. So to go back versus paying out for 5 or 6 years, $17,000.
Monaco, Florida has a state. Monaco, Florida has a state purchasing contract. It'll be brand new, they're gonna build it. It's a backup plow truck, so it'd be nice to have. But it should arrive in time for this.
And then the other things is used for.
Primarily, it's our liftgate truck, so we use it multiple times a week to haul any kind of supplies, cleaning equipment. All of our equipment gets moved on a daily basis in that lift truck. It's just not safe to use. Definitely miss having it. It's not for somebody that
What happens to it?
per policy, it has to be offered to the 2 towns. So I'm hoping one of the DOTs will take it and use it as a truck to clean throats, roadways, or it'll still function as a plow truck without a sander. If not, we're going to get sold if either town has an interest.
Any questions or discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any old business or executive session, so is there any motion to adjourn? So moved. Anything good on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.